spending millions of dollars and getting stuck.
Best school in Singapore.
Celebrating and thinking their price is gonna go up. Have you ever thought about buying a property to get your kid into a good primary school? Hello everybody, I'm Sophia.
And I'm Lauren. And yes, it's time of the year again. A lot of parents out there are actively researching on which is the best school that fits their little one. It's the primary school registration period.
Yeah, and I think me and you, Lauren, we have had so many conversations about this behind the scene. You as somebody that has kids and has been through the whole process.
Yes, tell me about it.
Yeah, which after she told me, right, it sounds like a big headache, a lot of preparation. And then me as somebody who doesn't have kids yet, but definitely, even though I don't have kids, when I chose my house, this was really something that I thought about and took into consideration just in case for the future.
And I feel that a lot of times people don't understand how the system works. It's good that we just let you know how the primary school application is like in Singapore.
So actually there's a whole system and there are different phases for the P1 administration. And honestly, all these things prior to being in the property industry, I honestly had no clue about. Maybe just the basic things of being within 1 km of the home. But actually, for example, phase 1 usually is for kids that get in first priority because their siblings are already studying there.
Correct. And then phase 1 is where the siblings are currently in the school. Whereas there is also phase 2A, whereby your parents or your siblings were alumni of the school, followed by phase 2B, where it covers parents volunteer. You know, you heard a lot of parents volunteering. Yeah, it's what we call the PV group. And then grassroots leaders, as well as endorsed by clans, churches, etc. And for phase 2C, it's actually split into 2 phases, phase 2C and phase 2CS. And for phase 2C, this is the most competitive phases because it opens up to all citizens. And of course, this is also the phase where the proximity matters the most.
I mean, just from the phases you went through, I'm sure we all have that friend that has been volunteering so many hours, like some of my friends, to try and get into the school. Yeah, but in our line, the people we see the most when they're buying homes, this is definitely a big factor that a lot of families are considering. Proximity, what's in the area, what primary schools there are. And though MOE says every school is a good school, but let's be real, in Singapore, there are definitely some schools that are more popular or branded than others that more of us might know about.
Yes, right. Even though there's no best school in Singapore, official school, there's no more official ranking anymore. MOE has removed it for the purpose of the good. But the demand is always driven by, for example, strong alumni network, academic, non-academic like CCA track record, you know, all the competitions, SYF, sports, arts related, affiliation, and surprisingly, the community and parents' perception. So I realized that some schools with very, very strong parents community, right, that are also those schools that are relatively more popular in general. Do you think so?
Honestly, because at least I understand from my friends, when they say very involved in the school, it's because they also kind of want, aside from wanting to know how it's like inside for their kid, they find it important to keep this tie with the school for maybe the younger sibling or whatever in the future. And how you know a school is really popular or has very, very high demand, right, is when in phase 2A and 2B, or rather the first few phases, you already see the need to ballot. Now, not every school is going to be the same.
So as we can see in some schools like St. Nick's, so there's no ranking, but from all these schools whereby even in your phase 2A, where your parents or siblings are alumni, we already see that distance matter. If not, that's where the balloting comes in. Your chances of getting into the school based on your balloting kick in right from phase 2A, whereas most other schools, maybe they start from the phase 2C.
So let's get into the big question. Is it really worth it to buy near a popular school to try and get in? Because honestly, there is no guarantee. So you can be spending millions of dollars and getting stuck there, even though you don't get in.
So here's what you need to consider: your actual chances of getting in. Do you know that there's actually a way to check
The MOE site, right?
Yes. So this site, right, is what I highly recommend and encourage all parents to check even before committing into a property that's near the school, thinking that just buying near school guarantees you the spot in. Okay, so this website, right, you are able to check that for phase 2A, you don't have to be within 1 km. That means meaning to say if you are an alumni, you don't have to be within 1 km to be able to guarantee a spot for your kid into the school. And I mean, most popular will be for the phase 2C, whereby you can check how popular the school is. Even if you stay within 1 km, right, your chances are like so low.
So for some schools, if you're alumni, it's basically a given, but some school you still even need that proximity, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I actually met this owner a while back. They bought their home just to have the 1 km proximity to the school, even though they're alumni already, but they really had no idea how the system works. It was their first kids. So basically, they uprooted their whole life to move closer to the school, even though there was no need for them to move at all.
That's why you have to check.
Correct. And I think not everybody will know this. If you're a mom and your kids going primary school, you research a lot, maybe you'll know, but in general, even for me and my friends, I actually find that not a lot of people know about this.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is also why we find that there's a need for us to educate people and to just share with you guys. Okay, just to take some example, for Nan Chiau Primary School, you know, there's this popular school in Sengkang, right? So, do you know that your chances, if in phase 2C, you move all the way there, you uproot your whole family there to live within 1 km, the chances of you getting your child in is about 35%.
Okay.
Yeah, so would you take that chance?
That's quite a low percentage in my opinion. But if I really love the school and I'm a risk taker, then maybe I'll do it.
Right. Okay. So, but on the other hand, if you were to move into within 1 km into this other school, and your chances is as high as like 85%. Wouldn't it make more sense for you to weigh your option and make that decision based on these statistics?
I mean, definitely between the two, if you're telling me that I kind of like both schools, but one is 85% based on the probability, then for sure, if I'm already going to move, I would definitely choose to move closer to the one with a higher chance.
Exactly. Yeah. So the statistics that I've just shared with you earlier, one is for Nan Chiau Primary, the other one is St. Nick's, CHIJ St. Nick's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's say if I have a daughter and I'm thinking of moving in within 1 km to these two schools, knowing the statistics that one only gives me about 35%, the other one is like 85%, I probably will be steering towards moving near CHIJ St. Nick's.
So it's really about understanding the probability. Speaking about popular schools, that one example we found about RGPS was actually very shocking to me.
Yeah, so Raffles Girls Primary School, I would think that most of the time at the top of your mind you have thought that it is a school that is so hard to get in, right?
Yeah, I would think it's a very highly applied for school and popular and very difficult. But after that example about your friend that lives in Woodlands, I was very surprised. Yeah.
So I have a friend, my daughter's friend's mom, who lives in Woodland, and she actually applied for her daughter using the Woodlands address to get into RGPS, and she got in.
So we're talking about Bukit Timah to Woodlands. That's not necessarily a 1-2 km proximity.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if you were to look and if you were to do your research and look at the statistics, for RGPS, within 1 km, no balloting required. Meaning to say, if you stay within 1 km, it's automatically 100% you get in. Within 2 km, same thing. There's no balloting required.
Straight away go through.
Yes, based on the past few years balloting results. And if you stay out of 2 km, meaning to say any parts of Singapore outside 2 km of RGPS, the percentage is 45%. Well, I don't think it's a high percentage, but for someone living in Woodlands, she took the chance and she got in.
Yeah, that's close to 50%. But I think for a lot of people, if they don't know where to check or where to look, they're just going to be going by their impression of the school. So having these resources, knowing where to look on the MOE site really makes a very big difference. And I think in recent years, it's definitely a lot easier for parents to check on the probability and estimate based on all this data. Because from what I understand, so previously, a few years ago, it was still under the system where if the first few phases, most of the slots got taken up already, it's just a flow flow over, whatever is left will be the last 2 phases.
Correct.
But in recent years, they actually made it mandatory even for the later phases like 2B, 2C to at least reserve a certain number of vacancies, right?
Yes, so starting from 2022, they actually make it a mandatory reserved vacancies for phase 2B and phase 2C to have 20 and 40 each.
So even if your kid that you're applying for, that school has a lot of people applying for the first few phases, this doesn't mean that you have no chance at all, because now they purposefully set aside a few for the later phases. I think on that note also, for some people, they are not willing to sell their whole home and then buy one in 1 km distance just for that chance. There's no guarantee. So what we see a lot of parents do also is they will rent a property that is within 1 km of the primary school that they do want their kid to get into, to see if they can get into first. So once they get in, then they will stay in that rental property, because if you're using an address, you do have to be staying there for a certain period of time once your kid's school starts. So if they get in, they will continue to stay in that rental, and then for their own home, they will rent out to someone else. But worst case scenario, if even with that rental address they cannot get in, at least they still have their own home to keep and fall back on in that area.
Exactly. I do find that this is a better option if you know the data and you know that there is no guarantee. You don't really have to commit into that property. You can go via the rental route first. Yeah.
So just because you move within 1 km of school, there's not really a guarantee that you will get in, and it's definitely not a cheap risk to take. So for most people, we'll suggest, yes, it's a bonus you move close to a school that you like, but also if your kid doesn't get into that school, at least make sure that wherever you're moving is somewhere that you can still function and live your life. Don't move somewhere that you cannot even live in, and then if they don't get into the primary school, you are really just stuck there.
Actually, come to think about it, I really have a friend who moved for the school and they don't get in. The kid didn't get into the school. So they were pretty much at a loss. They don't know what to do. And because they did not get into the school, just FYI, if upon phase 2C, you don't get into the school that you want, you can move on to phase 2CS. That's where you can only choose from the remaining schools that have vacancies.
So after everybody already get in, all the phases are through, it's just whatever slots is left. So you really don't have your pick or your top choices. You really just need to take what is there.
And you have to take it because you have already moved, right? And then, to be frank, at phase 2CS, those schools that still have vacancies, you can roughly guess that probably the popularity is not there. So can you imagine she actually moved already and she has to go to a school that even if she didn't move, she probably could have gotten into a school too. So in this case, it's actually better for her to explore the rental first. Because let's say if she were to rent a place near there and ultimately her child did not get into the schools that she wants, she can still move back to where her home was previously. And instead of having to start a new life, not being able to get into the school that she wants.
Well, in this case that you shared, it sounds quite heartpain. It sounds like she really preferred the old place she was saying that was not near the primary school, right?
Yes. So this brings me to my next point. A lot of times people think that being near primary school, a popular primary school, will bring the value of their property up. It's like as though when you walk into a new launch, right? Sometimes there will be big marketing words shouting on top, within 1 km to this school, that school. So people naturally will have the impression that, oh, actually staying near, it brings value, extra value to the property.
Yeah, I would say people almost think it's like equivalent. It's a must-have, you know. Your house need to be near MRT. It's like the same as your house being near a primary school.
Yes, it's a plus point.
So let's look at what the statistics say, okay? So the data shows that properties within 1 km of a popular school can command 100 to 135 PSF in premium over its other surrounding neighbours.
Whoa, okay.
That are not within the 1 km. So to give you a perspective, if you think about it as example, a 1,000 square feet unit, that's really 100 and 135k more just for that added advantage. But it's not always an upside. So there are also risks if you're buying to be near the primary school for that resale value factor, right? Because studies also show that if the school decides to relocate, the prices can actually drop by 5.5%, and vice versa for where the school is moving to, the new area, the property value actually goes up by about 4.7%. The 12 months before the school actually moves. So if your house you're buying purely banking on this factor, you never know what will happen. So I wouldn't suggest it actually. But definitely I would say to a degree that having a good school near your property does add to the value of it.
I mean, from my point of view, I do think that being near a popular school, the demand, you still have that added demand there if the parents, by looking at that area, are looking to put their kids into that popular school. So you have this added advantage over like probably your neighbor who is just outside the 1 km, right? So talking about relocation, right? So recently, have you seen the news on Mary Stella? So that one was, it creates quite a big hoo-ha among parents. Because Mary Stella, which is now located at Mount Vernon, they will be shifting temporarily to Mata Road between 2027 to 2029. So actually a lot of my clients, they're asking me, so what address to use during this period? It can be quite confusing. If you were to check, you don't have to change the address to be used. You should still be using the permanent address, which is at Mount Vernon, to register your kid, even though the site is going to move temporarily to another site for 2 years.
So don't get confused. That's also a question that I've gotten from many parents that are looking at the Mary Stella area. So use the original site. I think another question that I did get also, I'm not sure if your clients ask you this, is because the school is turning a co-ed, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they asked me, would that actually affect the chance of getting in? Like, will the demand go up? Or on the other hand, I also hear those that were ex-student asking if the demand will actually go down in the area because this is an entire change to the identity also of the school, right?
I feel that Mary Stella turning into a co-ed, from what we are seeing online, is that MOE, they are making all these moves to turn schools into co-ed. It's actually to cater to the increasing demand of the residentials around the popular school. Turning into a co-ed, do you think that it will actually affect the property around the school? Because like ultimately it has a very strong heritage and history of being a boys' school, Mary's boys. So what do you think that it will actually, what is your take on the property around this school after turning co-ed?
Okay, so I think this is something we see happening with quite a few schools where previously they are single sex, but now they are turning co-ed, like even with ACS. So does it actually hurt or help the demand? Okay, so I think, of course, now that it is co-ed, it means more people can apply, right? Like what we mentioned earlier. So for people that you're right next to the Bidadari area, actually, for Mary Stella. So that means that not just those with sons, but even those with daughter can apply also. But then will the identity and the popularity of the school stay the same? Because it's primarily known for being a single-sex school. So I was from a girls' school. So for me, if I wanted to send my daughter to the school that I came from, right, and then suddenly I hear that it's becoming a boys' school, it will make me feel a bit sad, honestly. I don't feel that it would make the school any less than what it is in terms of education, but you have that perception of like the heritage or that culture. Like, I really enjoyed being in a girls' school, and I feel like, of course, once it turns into a co-ed, it's going to have a whole new culture of its own. But ultimately, saying real, all things aside, in terms of personal preference or whatever, I think all parents, whether it's co-ed or single sex, the biggest factor for them is still going to be the quality of the education.
Exactly.
So,
so interestingly, hearing from your point of view from a single-sex school, this is how you probably would have felt as an alumni. But for me as a parent, if I were to consider, because I myself, I have daughters and I have sons. So let's say if Mary's is going to turn co-ed, right? From my point of view, I would still want to stay near there just to have the convenience, saving myself from all the logistics of sending them to different school, to put them all into a good school that already has a good reputation, like all along. It is not like a brand new school that you just put in, like, some time back in Pongo, there are some new schools just to cater to the residents, the growing population staying around Pongo. But this one is already a school itself that has the campus. It has a good track record of its CCA and all that. So to me, I would still want to put my children there.
So I think my perception is quite similar to yours. Ultimately, it really comes down to how well the school is known for their education system. It's not the co-ed single factor is not such a big factor, I feel. Like, if the school is a good school, whether it's co-ed or remain single sex, I think I would still want to send my kid there for me, personally.
So am I right to say that the properties around Mary Stella is still going to hold value even though after it turns coed?
Well, I think the area itself, even without the school, already has a lot of perks. So
That's true.
it's just an added factor for it,
Like Bidadari, we are already seeing the kind of pricing there.
Yeah, definitely. But also with that, because now on your point of Bidadari, you have so many houses that have just come out together in the recent years. I do think actually, again, with that added coed factor in the future, it'll be even harder for people to get in. Just my personal thing.
Okay, so moving on to our last discussion point, I'm sure you have clients who bought new launches just to be within 1 km to popular schools. Okay, so I also have clients who bought new launches wanting to use the address to get into the popular school.
I think for the new launch part, the thing that really confuses a lot of people that have not done it before is, and I asked myself this question when I first came in the industry, the building is not even up yet. The house is still under construction. It's an empty plot there. Can I actually use that address for my kid to get into the primary school? And the answer is yes, but with a certain criteria.
Yes, you can actually use the address if your child is starting school within 2 years from the Notice of Vacant Possession Date, NOVP. So when you buy a new launch, there will be some important dates, like for example, TOP, where you collect keys. Then maybe within 1 year, there will be a certification of statutory completion, CSC, and there is also on the legal documents this NOVP date. So this NOVP date, right, it is usually much later than your key collection date. So if you want to use your new launcher's address to register your primary school kid, you just have to ensure that the date that they start school is within 2 years from NOVP.
So if you are planning to use a new launch address, though it is not constructed already, you can, but just be very, very mindful of the timeline. And if you need an address soon, your kid is going soon to primary 1, then likely you cannot go for something that is newly launched because that takes about 3 to 4 years to build. You have to look at later launches probably. And I think some of the very popular new launches we've seen in recent years that people are looking at for the primary school will be like Pine Tree with Henry Park.
Henry Park, yes.
Lentor,
St.
Nick's,
Residences for St. Nick's, yes. And also for Nava Grove. Recently, initially during the launch, right, they can't confirm if it is within 1 km to Henry Park. But recently, One Map has confirmed that Nava Grove will be within 1 km to Henry Park Primary School. So congrats to all the Nava Grove buyers out there.
Yeah, those that bought already probably are like celebrating and thinking their price is gonna go up after that. Yeah, but this is just one of the strategies. So let us know in the comments if you would buy a home just for the primary school proximity, and if you have done it, whether it was worth it. We really love to hear.
And if you find this video helpful, do drop us a like, subscribe, and share it with someone going through this primary 1 madness right now.
And we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.